What's going on, everyone? So Anthony Davis is actively working towards ramping it up and returning to the Lakers in hopes to kind of turn the season around, right? The Lakers had so much promise before Anthony Davis went down. He was looking like the best player in the world. LeBron James kind of looking like 28-year-old LeBron James rather than 38-year-old LeBron James. And all signs pointed to the Lakers really kind of ramping up. And then Anthony Davis went down, looked a little bleak, but we were able to maintain, and the Lakers have looked really good. Role guys have really stepped up. This team is really vibing and playing with heart, and just seems to be a team playing for each other in many ways, right? Darvin Ham really has everyone understanding their roles, everyone buying in. The Lakers do have a lot of holes still, don't get me wrong, and my big concern is come the playoffs, that those holes will become even more prominent. However, you have LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook, so they should be more than enough to contend, at least in the Western Conference. We'll see if they're able to win a championship, but even if they don't, I do imagine that they would be a very tough out, but everything is shouldered on Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has to be the guy that rights this ship, that has to return, and he has to find a way to stay healthy. It is frustrating to see him go down and miss ample time, seems like every season. And so if he can get his body right, get his mind right, and continue to stay on the floor and be productive, well, then that will just continue to drive the Lakers in a positive direction and maybe contend for a championship. But definitely with all those holes, the Lakers need some sort of trade, right? I don't think they need the big blockbuster, 10-man turnaround roster type thing, right? You go get a solid piece or two, a solid rotation player or two. I think the Lakers are right there, right? I do. I really do. Whether it's like a Bojan Bogdanovic and another piece, or, you do the Spurs deal or the Hornets deal or whatever type of deal, right? Any of those deals, I do think really put the Lakers in just such a great spot, because the Lakers have a lot of really good players that are playing in roles that they shouldn't have to play in, right? Like Lonnie Walker isn't supposed to be your third, fourth best player. He's supposed to be your, fifth, sixth, seventh best player. Austin Reeves, same thing, right? Dennis Schroeder. You don't want Dennis Schroeder to be your third best player. Thomas Bryant, even, as great as they have played, and they've been fantastic. But if you could get a starting level talent or two that should be your third best player or your fourth best player, well, then now that just kind of allows everybody to kind of fall back into a more natural role. That'll give you better bench production, better production period, because now if Lonnie Walker gives you 15, that 15 is that much more impactful as of right now. Like if Lonnie Walker gives you 15, you could still lose that game. So that is significant. But we got a report yesterday that the Lakers might not be looking at trades until they get a definitive answer with Anthony Davis and his health. This came out via Eric Pincus. Now, I do have the full breakdown. I'll link that video down in the description below if you want more details on that. Definitely check it out after this video. But in that, essentially, it just says that, Anthony Davis, they're waiting to see how healthy he is, if he can ramp up and return to the court before they make any major moves. That doesn't mean that they won't make like a minor move. Maybe they make like a Cam Reddish move or something like that. But here's my problem, is that like you don't need Anthony Davis to do some major move, right? Because in the offseason, yes, they'll have like 30 to 32 million in cap space, but who are you signing? What are you signing? Right? Like a Gary Trent Jr., you signing a Miles Turner, and then once you do that, there's all your money, right? Like that's it. You have nothing left. So unless you can figure out a way to get and convince guys to take, maybe Gary Trent decides to take $15 million and so does Miles Turner, which I just do not see happening, unless you can just magically convince these players to take that, you're realistically getting one guy maybe. And then it's all vet minimum deals, right? Is Miles Turner, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James enough to win a championship? I don't think so. And then a bunch of vet minimum guys. You're really banking on these guys coming in and really having an impact. And maybe they do. Maybe you could get some solid guys and convince some players to, take some vet minimums and come play with the Lakers. But I don't want to rely on that. And I'm not saying you make a trade just to make a trade, but what a trade does is that trade gives you those pieces for this season, but the next several seasons. Because you're not going to be making a trade just to do a trade and rent a guy for, 4 months or whatever it is, right? Like, you're not going to go trade for a Miles Turner to just, have him play the remainder of the season and let him walk. No, if you get and trade for a Miles Turner, you're immediately trying to extend him to a long-term contract because you're not going to want to run the risk. If you do a Spurs deal and you go get, say, Josh Richardson, Jakob Poeltl, and Doug McDermott, you're going to want to extend those guys so none of them leave, so that way you have your pieces for the long haul. Any trade that you make is going to be for guys that are going to be this season and the seasons going forward. And with that, you would imagine that, okay, well, then it doesn't matter if Anthony Davis is healthy or not. Because even if Anthony Davis is healthy, you're still going to need those pieces. And if Anthony Davis isn't healthy, well, then now you have these pieces to kind of help you weather the storm. Hopefully you can get into the playoffs, and then Anthony Davis comes in healthy, and now you're off to the races, and maybe you can really contend. Or absolute worst case scenario, you're giving the rest of the season as a building block for all these guys to build chemistry and camaraderie and, relationships and stuff, right? And then now you have a full training camp, a full off season to kind of get everyone on the same page. And now maybe you can contend for the next 2 seasons and then figure out what are you doing with LeBron, what are you doing with AD. And even if those guys go, you probably have enough to where if you could get a solid piece or two, maybe you could still stay relevant. If you get a star or two, maybe you could continue to contend because you have that depth, you have that talent. That's why I think the Lakers should still make a trade. But unless they plan on trading Anthony Davis, why do you care to wait? And that's why I really think that might be the case. Like, what if the Lakers are considering, hey, maybe in this offseason, maybe we trade Anthony Davis, right? Can't stay healthy. Yes, he finally has kind of come into the role of like, I'm the guy, but it kind of feels like a little too little too late type thing. And it's like, because what other reason is there? I mean, granted, who knows what's going on behind the scenes? Let me preference that first, right? For all we know, Rob Pelinka already has a deal lined up, and maybe it's being finalized right now at the time of you watching this video. Maybe teams just still aren't interested in making a trade, right? Because it does take both sides to make a trade. So, as much as we all want to trade right this very second, it just doesn't work like that, right? It's a whole process, and then they have to go and file the trade and finalize the trade, right? Like, there's steps to getting a trade done. But like, if the report from Eric Pincus is true, and the Lakers don't want to do anything until they find out what's going on with Anthony Davis, that leads me to believe that if Anthony Davis isn't healthy, that they're considering maybe trading him and unloading him. And does that mean LeBron goes next season? Like, what do you do at that point? Do you try to trade Anthony Davis to get enough pieces and maybe get another star or something, like a star on a rotation player? Maybe you could trade him to a team that now they have like a disgruntled star that maybe wants out, maybe like an Atlanta or something like that. Just throwing names, just teams out there. But say like, a Trae Young wants out, right? Okay, well, we give you Anthony Davis and some piece, or, maybe for whatever reason the Nets are like, okay, well, we'll trade you, Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Like, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, maybe that's their thought, that maybe that's the idea that the Lakers have in their mind, because again, you don't need to wait for AD to get a deal done. I don't want to see them make a trade just to make a trade. I'm not saying like, oh, go do a trade immediately. It doesn't matter what it is. No, it has to be the right trade. But if that trade is on the table, Anthony Davis's health situation is irrelevant because you want to still compete. You still have LeBron James, and LeBron James has shown that like, hey, he can still win with these guys, right? He just needs some more help. So if you can go get him that help, I do think LeBron James can take you to the playoffs, and then hopefully Anthony Davis is healthy, he comes back, and now you can actually contend with Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and all the depth and role and rotation guys that you have. That's the idea. But if that's not the Lakers' idea, then the alternative would be to trade Anthony Davis, right? Like, actually consider exploring deals. And it's like, because at that point, then it makes sense not to do anything, right? Because if you're going to potentially trade AD and maybe LeBron, then why would you want to do anything? You wouldn't. You'd want to hold on to your draft picks. You'd want to hold on to your salary space, all that stuff, because you want to try to find in the offseason deals that can be done to, maybe rebuild or retool to maybe contend. Maybe if you can find a piece or two that LeBron really likes, like a star, like if you, again, like maybe he's like, oh, I can win with Trae Young. Me and Trae Young could be enough to contend and win a championship if we can also get like a John Collins or something like that, right? Like maybe you could work something out to where you get like John Collins, Trae Young, and like maybe a Clint Capella or something like that. LeBron's like, oh, that is more than enough to where I feel like I can contend. I'll stay. I'm not saying that deal will happen. I'm just, again, throwing stuff out there. But like, maybe the Lakers can find something that makes sense to keep LeBron, or you just get, a nice young package with draft picks and stuff like that, and start a rebuild and just wait to see what develops. Maybe you could trade LeBron, although I don't really know what team would be willing to trade for LeBron. And there was even a report that many teams are lining up and preparing for LeBron James to request a trade in the offseason. So maybe this is something that the Lakers are really concerned about. Like, hey, LeBron might leave. If we do a deal and LeBron doesn't like the deal, we might lose LeBron anyway, especially if AD can't stay healthy. So everything kind of lies on AD being healthy. That could be a real possibility. I wouldn't be shocked if the Lakers are maybe considering trading Anthony Davis. Because again, I don't see why you would have to wait for the Lakers. Now, maybe it's a little blown out of proportion. Maybe it's a little exaggerated based on the report. Maybe they just want to see that, give him a week or two. Not just that, but if he's supposed to come back towards the end of January, the trade deadline, you'd still have like 2-3 weeks. So maybe they want to just see how Anthony Davis plays during those 2 weeks before they actually pull the trigger on a trade. That could be a possibility too, that they just want to make sure and do their due diligence before everything, which is completely understandable. But I don't know, it's just odd to me. Just a thought. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments section below. What do you think? Do you think the Lakers could potentially be considering trading AD? Would you trade AD? Would you not? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear them. Let me know down in the comment section below.